Okay, Rabbi Isai. Be'ez Hashem, coming up soon is both Pesach Sheni and Lag BaOmer. We'll be masker. We have to note. Important to point out. In the world of the truth is, this is often in the world of like the north of Eretz Yisrael. There's a lot of interesting ksavim and writings and stories of people going up to Meron. That was the sorry, that's just where the camera is holding over there. I'm sorry. No worries. You're good. Baruch Hashem. Sorry. We don't have the tripod today, so we're propping it up on the stender. I apologize. The minhag used to be it was really Sfardim in Eretz Yisrael that would go up from Yerushalayim to Meron for Lag BaOmer, and they would stop off at the kever of Reb Meir the Tana, who's also known as Reb Meir Bar Lanes, right? Same guy, same fellow, right? Reb Meir the Tana, he did miracles. So Reb Meir Bar Lanes. They would go up there. It was said to be the Hilula of Reb Meir Bar Lanes, that was his yahrzeit. Likely that it is not his yahrzeit. The same way that it is likely that Lag BaOmer is not the Hilula of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Meaning it's the Hilula, it's a celebration of his ideas and ideology and worldview, but it's probably not his yahrzeit. There is a fascinating and very thorough sefer published a number of years ago by Rabbi Moshe Hillel, is the Rosh Yeshiva of the Yeshiva of the Mekubalim. The sefer is Eid Hagal Hazeh, or Eid Hagal Hazeh, is the name of the sefer that goes through the history and the mystery of what Lag BaOmer is, and relates it to this whole world of Reb Meir and Pesach Sheni being the yahrzeit of Reb Meir, and Lag BaOmer being the yahrzeit of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, and what exactly is accurate and what exactly is not accurate. Suffice it to say, for our purposes, that the celebration of both Pesach Sheni and Lag BaOmer by the Mekubalim in Eretz Yisrael had nothing to do with yahrzeits. Nothing to do with yahrzeits. Not the yahrzeit of Reb Meir, and not the yahrzeit of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. And arguably, and probably most likely, the day of Lag BaOmer is not the day of Rabbi Shimon's passing. What it is, however, is far more significant. It is likely that Lag BaOmer is the day that... so everybody says from the Gemara in Yevamos, this is the day that the Talmidim of Rabbi Akiva stopped dying, right? Why did they stop dying? There were none left. That's how the Gemara says in Yevamos, that they all died from Pesach ad Atzeres. V'haya ha'olam shameim. The world was desolate. What does that mean? That all of them died. So Lag BaOmer would seem like a terrible day. Why would we celebrate this day? And then the Gemara says, Shibari Rabbi Akiva Rabbi Senu Shebadarim. Then Rabbi Akiva came to the rabbis of the south, and those are the 5 rabbanim that became the mainstay of Torah Sheba'al Peh. One of them being Rabbi Shimon, and somehow or another this becomes the celebration of Lag BaOmer. That's very weird, very, very strange. Doesn't make any sense. So then, why do you celebrate Lag BaOmer? Because that's the day that Rabbi Shimon died? It's probably not the day he died. So what's it all about? Pashtus is, the Yom Hilula of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is not the day that the Talmidim stopped dying. They died mi-Pesach v'ad Atzeres. Mi-Pesach v'ad Pros Atzeres, that's why they want to say maybe 2 weeks before. Okay. But from Pesach to Atzeres, meaning there's a lashon that you have in some ksavim from Pesach ad Pros Atzeres, which means 2 weeks before, meaning halfway in the 30 days before Shavuos. So that's called Pros Atzeres. But Pashtus says that that's not what's going on here either. Most likely, that the celebration of Lag BaOmer is the day that Rabbi Akiva gave smicha to Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. That's the Hilula. That's the Hilula of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. That's what it seems to be the most intelligible explanation for the celebration, for this minhag of the celebration, al pi pshat. And of course, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is the author of the Zohar Kadosh. No, what do you say? So this in the days of Rav Kook it's a massive machlokes and a big discussion at Yom Hazeh. What exactly is the authorship and the origination and the authenticity of the Zohar? With a lot of people saying a lot of things. There are many, many letters that Rav Kook defends the authenticity of the Zohar, not necessarily the authorship, but the authenticity, and we'll discuss the difference between those two things in a moment. In Rav Kook's time, there was a strong correspondence between him and Rabbanim in Yemen. There's a group of Jews in Yemen that dispute the authenticity of the whole institution of Kabbalah, of Torah Hasod, and argue, as many did previously, that the Zohar is a forgery, that it was published and printed for the first time in the 1300s, 1200s, came from whatever it is, that none of this has to do with Torah B'Shem B'Yechai, that nothing of Torah Hasod is original Masorah, that these are all fakeries and forgeries of anti-Rambamist mystics that were influenced by other, whatever it might be. There's a lot. If you take a look at the history of debates about the Zohar, there's a lot. Rav Kook defends the authenticity of the Zohar. He notes, as many did before him, that there's obviously pieces of the Zohar that were not written by Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. How do you know that there are obviously pieces of the Zohar that are not written by Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai? First and foremost, because there are pieces of the Zohar that are very clearly using language that didn't exist in the days of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. There's words that are not in the days of Rabbi Shimon. That's for sure true. And there are thoughts and there are concepts that were not there in the days of Rabbi Shimon. And there are things that are very clearly statements that were lifted from other places and put into the Zohar, which makes the Zohar HaKadosh a very, very different sefer than almost every other sefer of Torah. But the truth is, it doesn't make it that different from other Sfarim of Kabbalah. And I want to differentiate between these two things by, first and foremost, discussing high level. What exactly is Pnimiyus HaTorah? What is Sodas HaTorah? What is Kabbalah? Now, we could spend at least the next year, 2 years, 15 years answering that question. Just what is Kabbalah? Within the general construct of the question of what is Torah, which is a very hard question to answer, al regal achas. But if you're asking the question, what is Kabbalah? So there's a mashal that I've been thinking about a lot over the last couple of years. I explored this with a couple of chaver last year, Shavuos. So I'll share it with you. Ultimately, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives the Torah to the Jewish people, he uses the word Anochi. The Gemara in Shabbos says Anochi is Roshei Tevis. It's an acronym for Ana, Nafshi, Kasavis Yehavis. Ana, I, Nafshi, my soul, Kasavis, wrote, Yehavis, and gave. Now, that's obviously not what Anochi means, because those words are Aramaic, and Anochi is a Hebrew or maybe Egyptian word. Some of the Rishonim argue. But Ana Nafshi Kasavis Yehavis means HaKadosh Baruch Hu, this is how the Gemara says in Shabbos, HaKadosh Baruch Hu wrote his soul into the Torah. That's what happened at Matan Torah, which means that there is a soul relationship that is being forged with the Jewish people. When we refer to, Medrash says, when we refer to Matan Torah is referred to as the wedding between the Jewish people and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, based on the pasuk, B'yom chasun asoi, v'yom simchas liba. Yom chasun asoi, zu Matan Torah. Hashem gave us the Torah, that was a chuppah, right? That was the chuppah. So what happens under a chuppah? So the chassan gives a ring to the kala. Good. That's called kiddushin. What happens immediately after he gives the ring? What do? We read the ksuba. We read the ksuba. What's the ksuba? It's a contract. It's a contract, right? Now, it's a funny question. If you would ask a person, what is marriage? What is marriage? So that's a hard question to answer. But the truth is, it depends on who's answering the question. If you ask a psychologist, what is marriage? They'll tell you about the emotional world of these two people and where he comes from, where she comes from, and what needs they're filling for each other, whatever. Right? If you would ask a historian or a sociologist, what is marriage? They'll talk about the development of humanity and about social contracts and about relationships between people and how this builds. If you ask a lawyer what is marriage, they'll tell you. Depends what kind of lawyer, but no. If you ask a lawyer what's marriage, they'll tell you. It's rights and responsibilities, right? This is what he owes her, this is what she owes him, this is what happens when this goes wrong, this is what happens when that goes wrong. In the event that something goes right, I don't have anything to say to you. No. Right? That's how. If you ask a lawyer what's marriage, they'll tell you it's a contract. It's a contract. Under the chuppah, husband hands his wife a ksuba. What is that? That's a contract. If you would say that is the marriage, you would be right, but you would also be missing a lot, right? Correct? The ksuba is the Torah bichsav of marriage. What does it say in the ksuba? The husband says, I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to provide you with she'er ksus and oina, with clothing, shelter, and intimacy. And he makes a declaration that this is how much I owe you, and this is what happens when things go wrong. Any couple that stands under the chuppah, imagining, this is a lot of money that I'm promising here. You're right, he's right. But if that's what you're thinking about, this is the wrong goal. Right? Meaning, if what you're thinking about is, Masayim Zuzim Kesef Saruf, that's a fat check, that's I don't know. This is that's a disaster. The ksuba is the ksuba. It needs to be there. You have to have it. But that's not the marriage. That's the Torah Shebechsav of the marriage. What's the Torah Shebal Peh of the marriage? Torah Shebal Peh of the marriage is, what does it mean to take care of your wife? Right? If the husband would read the ksuba and say, I promise to do all these things for you, and when you say, change the light bulb, take out the trash, that's not in the ksuba. Doesn't say that. Right? You'd be like, Bubala, you missed the point here. When it says, I will take care of you, it means you change the light bulb and you take out the trash. You understand? That's the Torah Shebal Peh of the ksuba. Right? No? Not there, right? Correct. Hold on a second. Whoa, we're going to get there. Who does the dishes? I mean, all of that, these negotiations of how this works. So you explained it to him, you downloaded to this young man, you've explained to him that what it says in the ksuba is not everything. It's just a reference point for everything. So you explained to him, what does it mean that I will work and I'll take care of you, and you explained all of this. So now you have the Torah Shebichsav and you have the Torah Shebal Peh. But neither of those two things is the relationship between this man and this woman. Right? That piece, the relationship, that personal, meaning what makes this different from all other chuppahs? What makes it that I want to marry you and you want to marry me? What makes that? What is that? So that, my dear friends, that's called Pnimiyas HaTorah. The relationship. That's the thing that is not written. It's not even the perush on what's written. It's the reason you're standing under the chuppah in the first place. Now, A smart husband will be able to look at his ksuba. A smart wife will be able to look at her ksuba and see not just the Torah Shebechsav and the Torah Shebal Peh, but the pnimis, the relationship there. Right? And the truth is, if you don't see the relationship there, then you're missing the whole picture. You have a question?
There's exclusivity.
Correct. 100%. But exclusivity is in the Torah Shebechsav already. Right? It's written, I'm marrying you and not anybody else. That's the exclusivity that's baked in. That's already written. That's contractual. But nowhere does it explain why. Why am I doing this? Right? What's the why? Meaning, I'm standing on the chuppah, I'm dedicating my life to you, you're dedicating your life to me. Why? Doesn't say that. But if you have to ask the question why, then you miss the whole point. That's called Pnimius HaTorah, right? Meaning, if a husband looks at his wife after 10, 15, 20, 40 years of marriage and she says, can you please go take out the trash? And he says, why? Gewalt, right? What's the answer to why? 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 Because this is my life, this is your life, this is everything. If I need you to take out the trash, what do you mean why? Why is a nonsensical question. Doesn't make sense. The whole thing falls apart. If there's a question on the why, then you missed everything. Right. And good luck, buddy. You missed everything. If you don't understand that even asking the why, which is why and this is essential to understand, and then we're going to read just one line in Rav Kook that's going to tie this all together. The Zohar HaKadosh is not a text that tells you information that you can make diukim on. Which is why the Zohar HaKadosh, it doesn't make a difference which pieces were originally written by Rabbi Shimon and which pieces were plugged in later. It's not Torah Shebichsav that you need to be medayik in every word. It's not Torah Shebal Peh that you need to have total accuracy of what the din is or isn't. If you would ask somebody to write down the relationship that they have with their spouse, that could accurately and adequately cover the scope of that thing called marriage for them and their spouse, if they could do it, you would know that it's a totally dysfunctional marriage. Correct? If they could, if you could write down how much you love your wife, how much you love your children, if you could do it, Rahman al-Islam, disaster. It's a disaster. The point is, it's impossible to capture in words. You can capture it in images and in a mashal and in a story and in poetry and in art and in pictures and in memories. You can't write it down. It defies the ability. You can't do it. There's two kinds of things that we call soid in Hebrew. There's secrets. One of my rabbis used to say, secret is something, there's a Yiddish phrase for this, maybe some of you guys know this, that a secret is something that you tell to one person at a time, right? Psst, did you hear? So that's a soid. Soid is something that you... But then there's a soid that no matter how much you talk about it, it's still a soid. It's hidden by definition. You can't reveal it. It's impossible to reveal. This is the soid that the Zohar HaKadosh is, the soid that David HaMelech speaks about. Soid Hashem Lireav. The secret of Hashem is to those that fear Him. Meaning, there's a relationship piece to the secret of Hashem that only me, only I, in this moment, in my relation with Hashem, understand the secret between me and Hashem. The same way that only I can understand the relation between me and my wife. And she understands it differently than me. And both of them are 100% true and 100% accurate and impossible to convey, even to myself. It's experiential at its core. And it's multifaceted and constantly shifting. And if you tried to write it down, you failed. And the nace of Lag BaOmer is celebrating the fact that there was once a Jew that managed to write down at least a piece of it from which all of Klal Yisrael could be sustained. To know what that picture looks like a little bit, at least to be able to have a hook, an opening, Pesach into that world called the relationship between the Jewish people and Hashem. And so Rav Kook writes as follows. And this is found in the beginning of the Sefer Eder Yakar, which he wrote in tribute to his father-in-law, the Aderet. Eliyahu Rabinovich Tumim was his first father-in-law. Says Rav Kook as follows: Sefer Hazar, the book, the Zohar, Hu Maroim Otzar Machshava v'Haregish Asher L'Yisrael. It is the height of the emotion of the thought and wisdom and emotion of the Jewish people. That's the point. It's thoughts, emotions, and wisdom. It's not laws, it's not texts. And then he explains, Ve'asidhu laha'arif al ha'umah tel shel tchiyah. And in the future, from this, it will wash over the Jewish people the tal shel tchiyah, the dew that gives rebirth, that gives the ability to come back to life, rejuvenation. The tal shel tchiyah, of tchiyas hamesim. V'chaim shel chilus atzomas, and a life of a strength of the etzem, bones, meaning the bones of the Jewish people, the core of who we are. L'romem karen Yisrael, to lift up the horn of the Jewish people. Like the lashon of the Zohar in Parshas Pikudei, la'akma knesses Yisrael me'afra, to lift up the Jewish people from the dirt. This is, imagine you have a husband and wife that have been fighting non-stop. And then they finally sit down, they hold hands, and they say, why did we get married? And from that conversation, they remember why they got married. And they begin to work out their issues. And they remember the moment standing under the chuppah, which is far beyond Torah Shebechsav and far beyond Torah Shebal Peh. It's the why of why you decided to stand under the chuppah. Naharei nachalei romimus machshava, the rivers of well springs of upliftment of thought. Sheyatzu v'sheyotzim v'she'asidim latzes. Those well springs that once came forth, that are coming forth, and that will one day come forth. Mim karoi mikar chaim, from the source of all life. Li Yisrael ula Adam, for the Jewish people and for all of humanity. Yaviu ligvuras emes ve'emuna, it will bring a strengthening of truth and faith. Mele'ah chosin yeshuas chachma v'das, like the pasuk says in Yeshaya, which the Gemara in Shabbos says is the basis of the Shisha Sidri Mishnah. Chosin yeshuas. It is this wellspring, this world of salvation, of wisdom, and of knowledge. That's what it is. It is the why. It's the Makar Chaim. It's the reason for all of this. And then he writes as follows. Or Hazar, the light of the Zohar. V'chol chel hagadol kamachane elokim hayotzim mikol hashba osav. And this entire force, like a encampment of godliness, that comes forth with all of its pieces and all of its influence. Al bichirei gdolei hanefesh shebe'amenu, to the greatest souls of our people, meaning the people that are dreaming big in Klal Yisrael. That, the big dreamers, the people that are feeling the gadlus of what it means to be a Jew. Those people. Yamtzi lanu gam ata anashim ha'omdim begadlom me'al la'ofek ha'chaim harigilim ha'ma'asim. It finds even now people that are standing at their greatness, those that are hovering just above, that just beyond the horizon of regular life, the people that are just a little bit more. Ha'ashpa ha'atzilus ha'nesia techala nafshes mle'os orvi yaf'ah v'hem ya'iru lanu b'karnei hodam kashemesh b'gvurasai. And those people that feel this, that feel that resonance of that deep desire to connect to this big picture Yiddishkeit, to the big dream of why we stood at Har Sinai Bichlal. Not because Hashem schlepped us out of Egypt and said, you have to stand here. And not because Kafalem Har Kegikis. And not to be... There's 1,000 reasons that a chassan and kala get married. But the chassan and kala that feel 20, 30, 40, 50 years after standing on the chuppah, that still resonate with the why. That's called Sodas HaTorah. That's called Pnimius HaTorah. That's called the Zohar HaKadosh. And the point that Rav Kook says here is, they will enlighten us with the Karnei Hodam, with the rays of Hod, which is the sphere of the week of both Pesach Sheni and Lag BaOmer, which is the sphere of Hod. Lag BaOmer is Hod Shebahod. Karnei Hodam, the light of that Hod, Kashemesh B'Gvurasai, like the sun in its strength. That's the goal, is to connect to that light. And here's the chap. If I would ask you, what comes first? Torah Shebechsav or Kabbalah? What would you tell me?
Kabbalah is so, it's the foundation, it has to come first.
It has to come first. Which is why Lag BaOmer comes before Shavuos. I mean, if you don't know why we stood at the mountain, there's no point in standing at the mountain. Celebrating that day that is all about why we stood there. Why show up? Why are you counting towards Shavuos? Why any of this? No, if you don't know the why, then you have no idea what the what is. Yeah.
The Yotzei Mitzrayim.
Yeah.
Why did they go to Hasina? Why did they go?
So it depends on who. And that's exactly the point.
Who told the Yotzei Mitzrayim?
Yes, there's different people. There were different people in the Yotzei Mitzrayim.
I always thought because we were kind of lost, and God was taking us in.
HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, "V'atem tiyulu mamleches kanim v'goy kadosh."
Right. So
There were people that felt that. I want to be that. And then there were people that were like, all right, well, we don't want to die in the desert. So those people were called the Erev Rav. Meaning, yesh v'yesh. There are people that stand under the chuppah because their parents told them, Bubba, it's time to get married. Mamleches kanim v'goy kadosh, yeah. Before Matan Torah. Before Matan Torah. This is Shmos Perek Yud Tes. HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, this is what HaKadosh Baruch Hu said to Moshe Rabbeinu at the Sneh already. Where he said to Moshe, by the way, you need to know. How will you know that this worked? Because you're going to come back to this mountain. Right? Tavdun es Elokim al har hazeh. You'll be here. You'll be Avdei Hashem on this mountain.
So that's why you say that the Kabbalah has to come first.
Has to be. Yeah.
Well, who was it given to?
Klal Yisrael.
The Kabbalah.
Kabbalah?
You said the Kabbalah was given before.
No. What I'm saying is the yesod of why. The yesod of why had to be before. The technicalities of Kabbalah are post facto. It is in a world where the Jewish people no longer feel like a Mamleches Kohanim and Go Kadosh. How can you see all of that in the Ksubah? That's what the text of Kabbalah is. But the feeling of it comes before. Meaning, when you sit down in marriage counseling with the chassan and kala and you show them the Ksubah, if they can't see the why there, it's a problem. Then you have to explain to them. You have to repaint that picture for them. Which is what Kabbalah is. Meaning the text of Kabbalah is rooting back into that text to show you why in that text all of the feelings that you had were true.
I'm still having a hard time with this because Kabbalah, the average person and those people at Har Sinai, even though the Kabbalah was, quote, given first, didn't have access to it.
The words of Kabbalah, that's the point. The words are not important. The feeling is the important part. Which is why you can read Kabbalah from beginning to end. You can read all of the Zohar and all of the Kisvari. You can read through every single sefer written in Kabbalah and still be an Apikoros. It's possible to do all of that. You'd be like, this is interesting study of whatever. But the Rambam didn't have access to all of it. And he felt all of it. That's the point. That's what Rav Kook says, and we'll finish with this. This is the Islam, and he says that Kabbalah, the Zohar HaKadosh is maram oitzar machshava v'haregesh asher liso. It's that source, that wellspring, that treasure chest of thought and emotion. That's the point. What texts are produced to paint that picture? Not the point. That's the point. What text do you need to prove that a husband and wife love each other? I don't care. But if they don't love each other, then all the texts in the world are meaningless. And if they do love each other, then all the texts just explore and explain. Be'ez Hashem Yisbarach, we should be zocher to all of it. Thank you, Rabbi Shamtai.